Right, now in this video, we are going to look at routing and controllers. And controllers, as you can see, are used to modify data within a model, and as well, they can also be used to modify the UI, that is the user interface within the view. So what we have essentially here is, you can see here, for example, we have the controller, which can modify this data within a model, because the model are the ones that is the architecture that interacts with the data within a database. And of course, when any data is modified within the model, which of course interacts with the database, then changes can be updated within a view. So the event here can be, for example, when the user submits a form. And when the user submits a form, of course, that data is being posted to the database. So what will happen is that a controller will handle that data, that is to retrieve the form data, and then that data will now be submitted to a database, whereby to now modify the model, and then the model will store that data, and then it will update the view with the changes. So the changes could be maybe a success, that the form has been submitted successfully, and so forth. So basically, that's what we have within routers, that is within routing and controllers. Now, the routing, of course, is now being able to create for example, you first create the route, that is the URL, and then, of course, we have a router that is going to map the controller to a method, and then that method is going to trigger the controller is going to trigger the method, and then the method will update, reflect the changes within the given functionality. That is what we're working on. Now, let's start by creating a controller, and let's go back to our text editor. So currently, this is what we have. So what I want us to do here is, on the controllers here, we can create a several controller. The first one is going to be post controller, that is .php. And then the other controller here, we are also going to have within the controllers folder is going to be the admin controller. So we're also going to have that. This is .php. So we're also going to have another controller within the controllers folder, which is going to be category controller. Right, and then we're also going to have the last two, which is going to be comment controller .php, and then here we're going to have the last one, which is the user controller .php. Right, so these are the controllers that we are going to have and we are going to work with. Now, within a controller, as I've said, you define what we call methods, and methods are like, for example, if we define an index method, we'll use it to display a list of posts. And if we define a show method with the ID appended to it, it will display a single post. And then lastly, we have what we call the mapping routes, whereby we define routes within a routes array, which will now correspond to the methods within those controllers. So that is what we have here. So basically, for example, let's just come to the post controller, which is this one here. So what I'm going to do here is going to have the PHP opening tags. And then here I'm going to define a namespace, which is going to be app and then / controllers, because that's where we are at. We are in that namespace. And then next, we're going to have a class, which is going to be post controller. I think this one is okay. So post controller, and then here we can echo post controller index method. So this is just, for example, just to show how this works. We can also have another one here, but so this could public and then function. Then this is show. Then within the show, we can have something like that. Now here we can show, let's just leave this one without this. So let's have something like this. So here we can have a single post displayed here. And also we can also append the ID. This one is okay. Now, once you have that created, the next thing here is now to come to create an routes file, which is now going to handle the routes, because you have talked about the method, and then of course mapping methods, that is controller, and then mapping the method. So what you're going to do on the public here, on the public here we created an index.php whereby we require the bootstrap.php, which has the bootstrap.php. We already know it has the database functionality and other functionality we also have in there. So what you're going to do here, I'm going to establish a routes array, which you're going to use to work within our entire application. So the first one here is I'm going to have this, let me just put this comment so that you can understand. So here we're going to say extract path component from the full URL of the current request, which is that. And then here I'm going to define something like this. So here we're going to have a request, which I'm going to say is equals to trim. And then I'm going to pass underscore URL. Yeah, so this is okay. So what we're doing here is that we want to get the path, the full path. So the full path could be something like HTTP slash basically something like HTTP slash MVC block dot localhost host slash show. And then what we want to do, we want to extract the post dot show slash 1. So we want to get that part here. So that is what this part of the code basically means. So down there we're going to have a request which is equal to trim. However, we are still repeating something. So when you say slash, that is this slash, what you're doing here is that once you get to request that given a full URL here, we are going to remove any trailing or slashes that are within that current path request that we want. So that is the trim part that is going to, so it is going to remove that leading trailing slashes. And then here we're going to have what we call the routes array. So I'm going to define a routes array, and I'm going to give it like this. So inside there, we're going to have two methods. So the first one is going to be a get method like this. So the get method is going to be this way. Then here we're going to have so inside there, since we have defined going back to our post controller, you can see we only have two methods, one for index and the other one for show blade. So going back to index.php, which is this one here. So what basically we're going to do, we're going to establish the first controller. So we are going to map the first controller. So this is what we're going to have. So this is going to be controller like this, and then here we're going to have slash app, and then slash controller. This is correct, but what we're going to do here, we're going to change this to posts controller like that. The method, of course, that we are requiring, we already know from the post controller, the method is this one here. Okay, so let's go back again. So that is index.php. Now, once you're done with that one, give a space there. So the next one is for the show method, and of course they are all part of the get request. So this one is going to be there. So here what you're going to have, of course, this should be something like this. And then here I'm going to have slash show, and then the controller So now it has land, but the method here that we're going to require here should be a show method, like that. So the post slash show is the endpoint that we are going to use. Now, when we are talking about requesting the full current, that is the full URL of the current request, basically this is what I meant here. So this is what is going to be taken out, and then the leading slash like this one is going to be extracted like that. So once we have that one, now next, before on this part here, that is on the post slash show, we are also going to have something like this. This is a 0, then this is going to be, close it that way, and then here we're going to have this. So basically what we are doing here, then inside we have this. So basically we have this, and then close this one that way. Okay. So this is now, once we get to have this, okay, now this one, we need to close it that way. And I believe this one needs to be, so we need to have it somewhere there. And then now, so now we have our two requests, that is for post, that is for the index, which is now the home page. And then for the post slash show. Now 0 to 9, this basically means that the request that we are making, of course, you're going to append an ID. For example, we are going to have something like, so we're going to have something like posts, and then slash show, and then slash 1. So basically here, this is what we mean by that. Right, so in the next video, now I want us to create our entire route, which we're going to use within our entire application.